Welcome, everyone. Today, we examine the U.S.-Iran confrontation, Israel's role, the legal debates surrounding military actions, and the controversial foreign policy decisions of President Donald Trump. Section 1. The Long Shadow of History. The tension between the United States and Iran did not begin in 2026. It goes back decades. In 1953, the U.S. supported a coup in Iran. In 1979, Iran's Islamic Revolution overthrew its monarchy. American diplomats were taken hostage. Since then, relations have been frozen in distrust, sanctions, proxy conflicts, cyber warfare, threats in the Persian Gulf. For over 40 years, neither side fully trusted the other. Section 2. The Nuclear Question. At the center of modern tensions is Iran's nuclear program. In 2015, the United States under Barack Obama signed the Iran nuclear deal. It limited Iran's nuclear activity in exchange for sanctions relief. But in 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew from the agreement. He called it the worst deal ever negotiated. Sanctions were reinstated. Pressure increased. Iran responded by expanding aspects of its nuclear program, and once again, the region moved closer to confrontation. Section 3. Escalation in 2026. By early 2026, tensions had intensified dramatically. Reports of military strikes, missile deployments, strategic warnings. U.S. officials argued the actions were necessary to protect American forces and regional allies. Israeli leadership framed their involvement as defensive measures against what they described as existential threats. But critics questioned the legality. Was there an imminent threat? Was Congress fully consulted? Were international laws followed? These questions ignited fierce debate. Section 4. Allegations and legal debate under international law. The use of force must meet strict criteria: self-defense, imminent threat, proportional response. Some human rights organizations and legal scholars have raised concerns about whether certain military actions met those standards. They argue that strikes on infrastructure or operations without clear defensive necessity could violate international humanitarian law. However, U.S. and Israeli officials strongly reject those accusations. They maintain that all operations were lawful and targeted military objectives only. The truth is often debated in the fog of war. Section 5. Israel's strategic position. Israel views Iran as its most significant regional threat. Iranian leaders have openly opposed Israeli state policies, and Israel has conducted covert and overt operations to limit Iran's military expansion. Supporters argue that Israel acts out of security necessity. Critics argue that aggressive tactics can destabilize the region further. The result? A cycle of action and reaction, each side claiming defense, each side fearing vulnerability. Section 6. Trump's foreign policy strategy. President Donald Trump has long criticized endless wars, yet his foreign policy approach has been described as high-pressure, unpredictable, and force-oriented. Supporters say this project's strength. They argue deterrence requires boldness. Critics, however, warn that withdrawing from diplomatic agreements while increasing sanctions and military pressure can corner adversaries. And cornered states sometimes escalate. Some analysts caution that over-reliance on military solutions could strain alliances, increase global instability, and place U.S. forces at greater risk. Others argue that decisive action prevents larger wars. The debate remains divided. Section 7. The risk of regional war. If escalation continues, the consequences could extend far beyond Iran. Regional proxy groups could become involved. Energy markets could be disrupted. Global shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz could face instability. Major powers like Russia or China could be drawn into diplomatic or strategic responses. What begins as limited strikes can sometimes spiral into something far larger. History has shown this before. Section 8. The American Question at Home. Americans remain divided. Some believe strong military posture ensures safety. Others fear a repeat of prolonged Middle Eastern conflicts like Iraq and Afghanistan. War fatigue runs deep, and economic pressures add another layer of concern. The ultimate question becomes, does this strategy secure America's future, or does it risk overextension? Section 9. What happens next? Diplomacy remains possible. Back-channel negotiations often occur even during peak tensions. But diplomacy requires compromise, and compromise requires trust. Right now, trust is fragile. The coming months may determine whether this confrontation becomes a contained episode or the beginning of a larger chapter in global conflict.